Today, we're going to do a review of the Premier League game against Everton that was at home at Old Trafford. And I'll also look at a build up towards the midweek game on Wednesday against Arsenal at the Emirates. So let's get stuck into it. Obviously, the result 4-0. 4-0. Incredible, amazing. We haven't seen this in forever. Can't really remember. I saw some stats that the previous coach hadn't achieved such a margin of victory in the Premier League in his tenure, and already coming up with this at this stage is, in my opinion, quite phenomenal. Yes, again, we have to take into account our opposition were quite poor, and it's one of those games that we should be winning and should be scoring goals. But this is not something we're familiar with, well, in our recent history in any case, in terms of getting back to those standards of excellence and being able to show dominance. It's not something we are familiar with at all. We couldn't even score any goals, and all of a sudden the team is able to score goals. Yes, granted, the past couple of games have been quite limited opposition and perhaps easier games, but still, it's not like we were scoring goals before against any of those teams or similar types of teams. So hats off to everyone involved. Obviously, our coach and the players. Um, if I was to talk about any specific players who really stood out, first up, I can't really think of anyone who had a terrible game or anything that's worth mentioning from a negative perspective on a particular player. But from who really stood out, obviously, if we're just looking at the impact of those 4 goals, I mean, Rashy with 2 goals, he just looked a different player. He looked a bit like his older self. Some of it, a lot of it is actually body language. He looked like he had a bit more confidence. After the first goal went in, you could see his chest was now out and he was playing with a bit more impetus. And that was awesome to see. He's one of those players where we quite worried in terms of where does he fit into the system. But so far, it looks like he might actually have a role, and he might, if we can unlock those goals and that speed, we've got a weapon on our hands. So really happy with his performance. And another player who has been coming under a lot of pressure quite recently, in any case, was Joshua Zirkzee. And I thought, first of all, from my opinion, I think he just needs time before we can actually make a judgment call on whether he is good enough or not good enough. He obviously needs to get a run of games, and in my opinion, there is a player there. Before he signed, and looking back at previous games at Bologna, and the team was obviously quite different, but he was more of that focal point, and he provided a lot. We saw some amazing build-up today, some nice layoffs, some nice flicks. That's definitely a major part of his locker. But what we also saw was the 2 goals and getting into those positions to score. And one was the left foot and then the right foot. And it looked like quite a polished performance. So that was also super positive. And then obviously our 2 assist kings, Bruno, 2 assists. That's his game, right? He creates chances for players. He's phenomenal at spotting things that other players can't. And I thought this was so far his best game under Ruben Amorim. Really, I thought he was quite positive in his role. And lastly, and probably our man of the match, Amad Diallo, phenomenal, phenomenal. I thought initially when we saw him the first time playing in that right wing back role, I was actually quite worried and concerned. I didn't necessarily think he had it in his locker to be able to fulfill that role and be successful at it. But looking at him today, I love the tenacity. I I love that work ethic and of course the skill. And I think he just gets going. Once he gets going, he's able to go past players. He's so clean on the ball, so comfortable on the ball. He doesn't lose the ball. His passes when he needs to do a simple pass, that's what he does. And I just hope we keep seeing more of him. It's such a disappointment we had to wait so long to actually see him get a run of games, but he's really looking the part. So for me, again, phenomenal. If I had to now perhaps look at what wasn't so great from the performance, before the goal, I thought we were actually a bit poor. It seemed like we were going back into our old habits and being very passive. What I think helped is for us to then just get on the ball and we started knocking it around. It wasn't anything exciting or progressive, but at the same time, it was quite controlled and perhaps a bit reactive in a way. But I think that built a nice platform for the team to get forward. And after they scored the first goal, then the confidence just came back. And a lot of it is part of that, right? We know a lot of it, the players have the talent, but a lot of what happens is mentality and basically just how the players are feeling at that point in time. So really amazing, really thrilled with the game and especially the result. Nice to see our players get some goals and assists. So awesome stuff. Looking forward to Wednesday evening, Wednesday night. Arsenal at the Emirates. This is actually quite a tough game for us. And I'm hoping, I hope we're able to get a result. Sure, the performance, definitely. I mean, that's the main focus at the moment. And that's what our coach has been saying as well. But for me, if we can get a result there, it's just going to keep this momentum going. It's going to keep us pushing. It's going to bring a lot of belief. And that's actually going to help the team in the longer term, or at least let's call it short to medium term and then thereafter. So just to build a bit of a platform. What was quite interesting is we saw a bit of rotation. So, for example, I'm expecting Hoyland to come back into the starting team instead of Joshua Zirkzee. And perhaps we could see a start for, it might be Mount or Rashy might start again, either of those two. And in terms of the defense, we saw a few minutes for different players as well. And once the game was sewn up, there was quite a few changes. Obviously, two players that are missing is Kobbie, which is quite, I guess, disappointing because it's his first game back. But I think we're okay there. I'm actually quite comfortable to see a Casemiro and Ugarte midfield again. I think they complement each other really well and probably more suited to that game. And obviously the big miss, our star this season, the the Maz, the Razmataz Mazurai, phenomenal player, and unfortunately he's also suspended for that game. I'll be curious to see who fits in at the right centre back role. Martinez shifted into that role and he actually played quite decent. It was quite a nice option to have that left-footed player on the right, being able to cut in and play the ball back in the field. So that was quite interesting. That's the one role that I'm a bit concerned about. The rest of the team, I think it sort of picks itself for the most part. But if I had to say what I'm expecting, I would expect to see the same defense that we saw at the end of this game. So meaning Luke Shaw as a left centre back and right centre back Martinez, and obviously the Matthias de Ligt who's been playing in that position as the centre back for the last few games, and he's actually he's gaining confidence. We need to bring out that leadership qualities that he has. We need to coax that out of him. We need to see that more. It's very early days, but I strongly believe he could be a future captain of the club. So looking forward to that game. Again, it's probably the one game that I really hope we get a result, just because not to say Arsenal are our rivals, but I mean, they're challenging on a different level at the moment. And perhaps it's growing up seeing United versus Arsenal always at each other and basically challenging each other. But also, yeah, let's just say it, it's the fan base which gets all of us. So, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully we can get a result, and I'm looking forward to the game. It'll be a great test and a great gauge for us to assess progression where we are at the moment. We can't expect to be a finished article, obviously not in such a short space of time, but just to see exactly where we are. And it's so encouraging to see small incremental improvements as we go along. So that's pretty much where we leave it for today.